Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Metropolitan Report Live. I am your host, Alfred Jr., and things are going from bad to worse with this ball club. But before I get into all that, I just want to say if you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy everything that we do here on this channel, please, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and sound off in the comments. Again, like, subscribe, share, sound off in the comments. This New York Mets team, I don't even know what to say anymore. As we are live here on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Again, live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. This New York Mets team, I just don't get it. We got a comment here, friend of the show, Barry Grant Jr. Team is absolute garbage. I'm starting to believe that myself, Barry. Starting to believe that myself. It's just really painful what's been going on. We pull up the MLB standings. All the games but one are, as of today's schedule, have been played. Cubs Cardinals is going to go on momentarily on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, but the standings here, it's rough. It's really rough. You have in the wild card for the National League, the Mets sitting at 63 and 55, holding on, clinching on for dear life to that final wild card spot. Again, that wild card spot, they are 1.5 games ahead of the Cincinnati Reds, who won today despite the Mets' loss. And once again, it's just not good. I mean, you want to look at this Mets team, just got swept. The Milwaukee Brewers, and I said this on our last Metropolitan Report. The Mets are playing a first place team. The Brewers are not going to be a slouch, and they absolutely had fun with this Mets pitching staff. I mean, the Mets, they got to wake up. They have to wake up. Even when the offense is alive, like in today's game, the pitching just blows up. The Mets played a tight game on Friday. They lost 3-2. Lost 7-4 yesterday. They lose 7-6 today. I just don't understand. I don't understand at all. I don't know what changes need to be made, to tell you the truth. Honestly, it's there are 44 games left in the season. The Mets can make the playoffs. As of right now, if the season ended today, they'd be limping in. But the Mets, they have to do something here. And I feel like there's no hunger. There's no sense of urgency. This is the worst time of the season to lose games. This period, worst time of the year to lose ball games. We're in August. Absolute worst time to lose games. Forget the division. Forget the division. I don't even think the division is worth chasing anymore. The Phillies can't seem to lose. The Mets in the divisional race, 5.5 back of Philadelphia. Philadelphia looking like a runaway choo-choo train. They're probably going to take the division. But this Mets team, I just don't know. You know, the Mets were world beaters the beginning of the year. This Mets team early on in the season could not seem to lose, no matter who you put in front of them. And then, like, once June came, everything just went all downhill. And I just don't get it. I'm at a loss, folks. I really am at a loss for words of what is going on in this Mets season. And I gotta blame. There's a lot of blame to go around. Sure, the players are not producing; they get the blame. But David Stearns, Mets general manager, and I've criticized him on this show before. And I previously said in a previous video, still on the channel, if you're following our YouTube, that David Stearns' approach to building a pitching staff and a rotation is very flawed. And what did I mean by that? David Stearns loves to take reclamation projects and cast-offs from other teams, like a Sean Manaea, like a Frankie Montas, last season a Luis Severino, guys other organizations gave up on. And he likes to sign them to short deals. And if you get something great out of him and you get a great season out of him, like he did Manaea last season, or like he did Griffin Canning when he was healthy this season, then great. And if they crash and burn horribly, then they crash and they burn. And that's just not. I said it back. I said it months ago, and I'm going to say it again. It's just not sustainable. It is not a sustainable way to build a winning roster. It's just not. And I'm sick and tired of people that defend Stearns, because let's be real. The Mets trade for Cedric Mullins. Cedric Mullins is not a world beater. The guy was batting .230 in Baltimore. What did you expect to get from Cedric Mullins, realistically? Good friend of the show, Bryson Carver, host of the Carving It Up podcast, airs every Monday and Wednesday until football season, and he'll air on Fridays here on YouTube. He says, Mets aren't playing good team baseball at all. Offense doesn't click when the pitching does, and vice versa. Yeah. And David Stearns is the big blame, because you trade for Cedric Mullins. The guy's a 230 hitter in Baltimore. He's their everyday center fielder. He comes here as a platoon guy, and what more can you expect? A 230 hitter is not magically going to turn into a 375 guy just because he's playing in a different uniform in a different city. You are who you are at the end of the day. So, again, guys are who they are. And that's just a cold hard fact. The guys play to their stats of their baseball card. And that's just cold hard facts. The pitching, like I said, going back to the pitching. And I'll say it again. Going back to the pitching. Realistically, look at this Mets rotation. Frankie Montas, who's been a human piñata, should be gone. Sean Manaea, struggling, not looking anywhere near like the Sean Manaea of last season. Kodai Senga struggling down the stretch. David Peterson has cooled off. And Clay Holmes is who we thought he was the entire time. You got a rotation full of guys who cannot go 5 solid innings. But yet here we are. Bryson asks, so do you think it's a roster construction problem? I do remember pitching being a big concern prior to the season. Yes, it's a big roster construction is a big part of the reason why this team is not built for October. I'm sorry. This team is not built for postseason play. And you know what? If the Mets somehow make the postseason in the way they're going, we are very, very fortunate to have gotten there. David Stearns, the only move he made of significance in the offseason was the Juan Soto deal. Yeah, he brought back Pete on a 2-year with a player opt out after this year. Whoop-de-doo. Pete should have been re-signed anyway. David Stearns, he treats the Mets like they're a small market team. Now, granted, Stearns was the GM in Milwaukee, and what he did there worked. But what he accomplished there was due to the part that the Brewers are a small market team. The Milwaukee Brewers, if you look at the construction of that roster, Andrew Monasterio, Jackson Churio, William Contreras, Bryce Turang, Sal Frelick, all guys who came up in that organization. Now, I give Stearns credit. He knows how to build a farm system. And when you know how to build a farm system, you can either do one of two things with that farm system. You can develop those players and have them on your big league roster and build your franchise's path to success for the next few seasons, like he did in Milwaukee. Or you can do what some other teams do, like the Dodgers, develop those prospects into trade bait so that you can get players to help you win now. Look at the Dodgers. In the offseason, they maxed out their bullpen. They got rid of prospects to get to get Tanner Scott, who gladly left his closer role in a year ago to go to the Dodgers and be a cog in the wheel to compete. The Mets have a great farm system. Carson Bench, Jonah Tong, Nolan McLean, Brandon Sprout, Jet Williams, Mitch Voigt. But they're not doing anything with those prospects. We don't have room on this roster to promote anybody. Could have traded him away. The Mets have a lot of MLB pipeline talent in that farm system. Could have traded him away for somebody. And the best you could do at the trade deadline is Cedric Mullins. Tyler Rogers has proven that he's probably mentally checked out. He can't wait till the offseason to get a deal back to the Giants. He'll probably end up going back there as a free agent in the winter. Ryan Helsley, out of the 3 bullpen acquisitions, Ryan Helsley's the best one. Gregory Soto, he's whatever. We might as well not even pick them up. We gave up Drew Gilbert. David Stearns gave up Jose Butto and Drew Gilbert for Tyler, I can't hold a lead to save my life, Rogers. David Stearns got to do better. The Phillies, our rival, National League East, they're in first place. You know why they're in first place? In the offseason, they improved their team. They went and got Max Kepler, a proven power bat. What'd they do at the trade deadline? They got Harrison Bader, who we had a year ago. Then they went ahead and traded for Johan Duran, Twins closer. Guys got great stuff. Twins sold off their bullpen. Bryson Carver, friend of the show, says, should have never given up my guy Gilbert. I agree. Drew Gilbert, the former Tennessee Vol. One of the greatest players in the history of that school. It's very disappointing when you have a GM who works for the richest owner in North American sports. What do we hear about Steve Cohen all the time? We have the richest owner in all of North American sports. But yet Stearns runs the team as if Stearns runs this team as if he's on limited funds. Like he's back, like he's still in Milwaukee, small market team. Say what you want about Billy Epler. Say what you want about Brody Van Wagenen. Say what you want about Omar Minaya. Omar Minaya, by the way, got the Mets very far in 2006. But say what you want about past general managers of this franchise. Steve Phillips is now on Sirius XM radio as an analyst. Say what you want about these guys. But at least, even if they may have spent the money in wrong places, like Steve Phillips signing Mo Vaughn, which he shouldn't have did, or Jeremy Burnitz, which he shouldn't have did, or Omar Minaya making the Mets Los Mets, Brody Van Wagenen, who was a former agent of Jacob deGrom. Some people said it was a conflict of interest when they gave deGrom the bag back in, what was it, 2017, 2018, conflict of interest? Say what you will about any of that. But at least those guys spent money. Stearns, outside of Juan Soto, and I firmly believe he only went for Juan Soto because it was something that he was somebody that Steve Cohen and his wife, Alex, wanted. You leave David Stearns to his own devices, Juan Soto would not be a Met, I don't think. Got another comment here. Clint Alexander says Mets are cheap bastards. Yes. They are cheap bastards. I completely, 100%, wholeheartedly agree with you. All Even Podcast, Barry Grant says Cohen closed the Soto deal. Yes, I just said that. If it was not, Steve Cohen, primarily his wife Alex, wanted Juan Soto on this roster. Because if you would have left it to David Stearns, he would have not spent the money. He would have not spent the money. Again, look what Stearns did with the Brewers. Built the farm up, and all but one of those prospects he built up, Keston Hiura, who's now in the Rocky system, all but one didn't pan out. Stearns, even before that, Stearns built up Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns. Barry Grant Jr. says, Stearns is now on the clock and it's ticking. I don't want him fired, but he needs to be. No. Forget being held accountable. I want Stearns gone. And again, I posted a video on the YouTube channel for the Metropolitan Report, the Metropolitan Report podcast on YouTube, for those of you watching on Facebook and Twitch. And I said that David Stearns' approach to building this rotation and to building this bullpen is flawed. And some people told me that I was wrong in that opinion. Some people told me I was overreacting. The man signed Frankie Montas. To a 2-year, $34 million deal. Now, let's talk about Human Pinata Montas for a second. Frankie Montas is so bad that he was scheduled to start yesterday against the Brewers. And what did Carlos Mendoza do? He went with a reliever to pitch the first inning of the game because you can't trust Frankie Montas. Where in the hell, in the history of baseball, do you hear a manager come out in the presser, and we covered this the other day on an episode, comes out in the presser and says, well, yeah, he's scheduled to pitch Saturday, but because he struggled, we're going to go with an opener and then bring him in bulk relief. Does that sound like a starting pitcher that you would have faith in? Does that sound like a starting pitcher that somebody in their right mind as a manager of a ball club should throw out there on the mound? Oh, he's been struggling, so we're going to give him one inning off and delay him coming into the game. We'll put him into the second inning and hope to God that the game is still tied or we have the lead going into the second inning. Clint Alexander says his Moneyball approach is rearing its ugly head in regards to Mr. Stearns. For those of you who know baseball, the Athletics, when they were in Oakland, had a general manager by the name of Billy Beane. Billy Beane started this phenomenon of Moneyball, where you spend as little as possible and hope to get great results from the least amount of money you spend. And it works for small market teams, but it doesn't work in New York. Say what you want about the Yankees. I hate the Yankees. However, Brian Cashman, in his tenure, has put together some World Series championship teams because he and Steinbrenner are on the same page and spent the money. Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers, they spend the money. And they spend the money smart because they deferred Ohtani's money to get other players to come help him. But back to Human Pinata Montas here. I want this man off the team. Designate him for assignment. Maybe the Rockies, the Marlins, some bad team that probably won't have anything to play for in the next 6 to 7 years will pick him up. In all my life, I've never heard of putting a bullpen guy in to start a game to give the starter who was supposed to start some confidence. They burned Reed Garrett's arm in the first inning yesterday so that Montas could come into the game with a lead, hopefully. Now, possible solutions. Trade deadline's over. There aren't any solutions. We already ruined Blade Tidwell before we shipped him out of town. I don't want to see Brandon Sproat called up this season. I don't want to see Jonah Tong called up this season. He's in Double-A. He's in Binghamton. He hasn't even pitched in Syracuse yet. But I don't want to see any of the young kids brought up just because this moron is struggling. Calling up guys who you don't know what I say this all the time. Prospects are like a box of chocolate. You never know what you have until you have it. What I mean by that is you go to Walgreens, you get a box of Russell Stovers, you open it up, you may have strawberry, coconut, nougat, caramel, plain chocolate, dark chocolate, milk chocolate, white chocolate, whatever. But you don't know what's in the box until you open the box. Jonah Tong is the minor league leader in strikeouts right now. We call him up tomorrow, and he might get shelled every start he makes the rest of the way. Blade Tidwell was doing great. Had a good showing in spring training when he was invited. And you know what happened to Blade Tidwell? He made 4 appearances with the Mets, 3 starts, 1 bulk relief appearance. He went 1-1 and had an ERA north of 9. But we called him up because we had injuries. We had no choice. And then he proved he's not a major league pitcher. I don't know what the Giants are going to do with him. He was involved in that Tyler Rogers trade. And he hasn't touched a Major League Baseball mound since. Bryson Carver says, Mets have a bad case of Red Sox-itis. Huge market team that spends like the Colorado Rockies. Well, that's because we have a cheap general manager. And you know what the worst part is? And I didn't like Billy Epler. I agreed. Billy Epler needed to get sent out of town. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. But David Stearns came in here. He forced Buck Showalter to resign. I love Buck. Miss him to this day. And he just ran the Mets like it's his business. Like the player contracts coming out of his pocket. I don't know where the cheapness comes from. Barry Grant Jr. says, call up the kids. If not, season's over. No. You're going to call up the kids when they're not ready? Jonah Tong hasn't pitched in Syracuse yet. And you want him up in the bigs? Do you want them to ruin Brandon Sproat like they ruined Blade Tidwell? Jet Williams, maybe. I would take an offensive player before I take a pitcher. Maybe give Jet Williams a chance. Carson Bench, nowhere near ready. Just got to Binghamton. Elvin Solano says, David Stearns is another nickel and dimer, just like the Wilpons were, yeah? Actually, no, this goes back to my earlier point. The Wilpons spent money at times. The problem with the Wilpons was they spent money on players past their prime, or they took huge gambles. The Wilpons spent money on Mo Vaughn. The Wilpons spent money on Jeremy Burnitz. The Wilpons spent money on Jason Bay. They've spent money. Sometimes those examples, it didn't work, and other times, I can't say the Wilpons didn't nickel and dimers, because remember, at the time when the Mets signed Pedro Martinez in 2005, he was the highest paid pitcher in the league. I can't say they were nickel and dimers. They're the reason Bobby Bonilla is still a millionaire to this day. But the Wilpons, you know, for all of they were just clueless. They spent money in the wrong places, but they were not cheap. They just got guys past their prime. That's all. They were just idiots, but they weren't cheap idiots. Gotta give credit to where credit is due. They went out and got the 2006 Mets, Paul LaDuca, Sean Green. They brought Cliff Floyd. Cliff Floyd in 2003 was a good addition. They spent money, just sometimes in the wrong places. Barry Grant Jr. again. We have nobody to pitch 6. That's Stearns' fault. Now, granted, hindsight is a powerful tool, right? Nobody knew Corbin Burns was going to blow his elbow out, but on the free agent market this season, Corbin Burns was the best starting pitcher available, and the Mets didn't even make an offer. Stearns didn't even look his way. Stearns knew him from Milwaukee. Didn't even look his way. Didn't even look his way. Stanley Babbage says Keith Hernandez should be named next Mets hitting coach. Stanley, there's a wide variety of guys who the Mets could go to a hitting coach. I don't think Keith wants to leave the booth, nor should he. I think he's found his niche later on in life. And also, Keith doesn't like traveling to the West Coast. If you notice, like a lot of the Mets, when they go to play the Padres or the Angels, he doesn't really make the trip. So I think Keith is set where he's at. I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like a Darryl Strawberry being the hitting coach. There's a wide variety of guys, but the Mets' problem has always been hitting coach because 2021, Chili Davis, who's a former World Series champion with the Twins and the Yankees, switch hitter. He was a hitting coach, didn't amount to much. So hitting coaches have always been the Mets' Achilles heel. Barry Grant Jr. says we should go after everyone because we have the resources to buy guys out if they don't produce. Again, that is correct. And I'll tell you this. Say what you want about the White Sox asking for too much. Maybe we should have gave them Vientos because Vientos is not hitting. Maybe we should have get this farm system that the Mets have is too fruitful. The farm system is too fruitful to be this cheap. The Mets have gems in the farm system. You got to understand. And if I am wrong with what I'm about to say, please, 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 please sound off in the comments below. But I think that the Mets' window to compete as a legit threat to the World Series title is 2 years. This year, next year, and the year after. So 2 years from now. Why is it only 2 years? You got to look at a lot of our roster. Say Pete Alonso sticks around. He's going to be older. Juan Soto will still be 28 by then. Lindor, over 30. Senga already an older pitcher. All those innings on his arm from Japan. Brandon Nimmo's been on the longest tenured Met, been on the team since 2016 and still locked up for a couple more years. Jeff McNeil still locked up for a couple more years. The core is getting older. Our best players are getting older. Yeah, well, Francisco Alvarez and Ronnie Mauricio, they'll still be young, but they can't hit. What good is youth when you have no talent? You know, this guy, Francisco Alvarez, I don't know if you guys know, he walks around with red ink tattooed across his throat that says the best. Yeah, the best at what? Striking out? The best at grounding into double plays? The guy, I thought he had us all proven wrong, but he fooled us all. The guy goes down to Syracuse, bombs away, 8 home runs while he's down there in a month. Comes back up to the bigs, has a good first week, and then goes back to the Francisco Alvarez we knew all along. Alvin Solano says, OMG, I miss Bader, Iglesias, Martinez, and Quintana. Now, out of all these guys, Martinez retired. Bader didn't play a big role with the Mets down the stretch last season. Philadelphia rightfully got him. Iglesias, the Mets didn't want him. And to tell you the truth, last year might have been a fluke. He hit 337 last year, but Iglesias is on the Padres. He's not the everyday second baseman. And, you know, Iglesias, OMG era is dead. And Jose Iglesias not having the greatest season out in San Diego. When I look at Jose Iglesias' numbers, and I wanted Iglesias back. His defense is great. Iglesias hitting .233 this season, no homers, 25 RBIs, having a down year. Quintana's the only one. And I didn't like Quintana when he was here, but Jose Quintana, who we avoided going against the Brewers, it didn't even matter because the Brewers still destroyed us, swept us. But Jose Quintana, 9-4 this season, 17 starts, 3.57 ERA. Not a strikeout guy. He's pitched 93 1/3. He's got 66 Ks. The Mets had the chance to bring him back on a 1-year cheap deal. They decided not to, and look at the year he's having. Bobby Munoz says, my good friend Bobby, how you doing? Thank you for watching. What about JD Martinez? He says, I'm seeing a few people suggest he become the new hitting coach. I don't know where those JD Martinez rumors came from, to tell you the truth. But people want him as the hitting coach. JD Martinez, a former World Series hero with the Boston Red Sox, former Detroit Tiger. He was a Dodger. The guy knows how to get to the playoffs. He knows what it takes to win a ring. He was a great, prolific hitter. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think it's Bobby Barry Grant Jr. says we should hire Robin Ventura as hitting coach. And to tell you the truth, with all these names people are throwing out, it's 44 games left in the season. I think they make a move after the season's over. I don't think anybody is getting fired or replaced at this point in the season. I could be wrong, but weirder things have happened. But it all remains to be seen. But again, whoever they get, I don't foresee any moves being made coaching wise at the current moment with 44 games left. I know, again, crazier things happen in other sports, but I just don't see it. Stanley Babbage says Stearns hasn't done enough at the trade deadline. I completely agree. I think he needed to pull off a blockbuster. He didn't. Now, Ryan Helsley was the best acquisition by far. Again, I think he overpaid for Tyler Rogers, giving up Gilbert and Buto. Tidwell already proved he can't pitch in the majors. That is what it is. Something else I want to touch on, and I wish I could talk about this under happier circumstances. As Stanley Babbage is saying, Lindor's been struggling. Yeah. You know what? Lindor on that road trip in LA earlier this season when he broke the toe, he hasn't been the same since. Some people say he should have gone on the IL. Other people say, the toe has nothing to do with the struggles, but he's cooled off. He's greatly cooled off. And honestly, I may be on the fence by myself saying this, but I am so glad that the Mets did not name Lindor the captain. I get it. The guy takes accountability, always answers questions in the media, but David Wright never struggled so bad. Keith Hernandez never struggled so bad. Gary Carter never struggled so bad. All three Met captains. I'm not going to compare to John Franco because John Franco was a pitcher. And quite frankly, John Franco played on way worse Mets teams that had no chance or no hope of doing anything. But Bobby Munoz says, however, I do agree coaching changes more than likely to take place after the season. That is correct. Barry Grant Jr. says, the biggest issue I have with Stearns is you fire Buck but retain the hitting coaches when they were bad before he got here. He's a pencil pusher. Just look at numbers on paper. And, myself and Barry Grant, who host the All Even podcast, his podcast comes out every once a week. Go check it out on YouTube. Great podcasters, talk sports. Oh, he's also a Met fan, and he and I, off air, have had conversations about Stearns. And again, I said it from the beginning, and people told me that I was wrong. I was out of my mind. But you cannot construct a team this way. Look how he filled out. Look at this roster. Tyrone Taylor is the everyday center fielder. Another guy who has Stearns connections. He knew him in Milwaukee. Tyrone Taylor was never a great player. Clint Alexander says, Mets have a leadership issue from a player standpoint. They have a tremendous manager, but player-wise, the leadership lacks. And yes, Bobby Munoz says, I think they'll bounce back. Mets will be in the playoffs. I think they can get it done. Bobby, you have more faith in them than I do, and I'll tell you why. The Mets can't seem to win. Losers of 10 of the last 11. Cincinnati a game and a half behind. And those kids in Cincinnati are hungry. Those kids in Cincinnati, I'm talking about T.J. Friedl, Spencer Steer, Gavin Lux, Noelvi Marte, Ellie De La Cruz. Those kids want it. Matt McClain, those kids want it. They are hungry. You saw what happened when they came to town in Citi Field weeks ago. They gave the Mets the business. Ellie De La Cruz, generational talent, 5-tool player, great defense, amazing speed. Power hitter. What more can I say about the Cincinnati Reds, who won today? They beat the Pirates, as they should. That NL Central, super competitive. They're going to have 3 teams in the playoffs, possibly. The Cubs are going to make it. They have the first wild card spot. They're currently playing the Cardinals on Sunday Night Baseball as we speak. The Brewers in first place, who padded their lead in the NL Central thanks to our inept way of playing baseball. But it's possible it might be Brewers, Cubs, Reds representing the NL Central in these playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised. Barry Grant Jr. says, to be fair, it was supposed to be Siri in center field. You know what Siri's batting average was before he broke his shin? .050. Enough said. Bryson Carver says, kids in Cincy are really coming into their own. De La Cruz is awesome. Ellie De La Cruz is a problem. Cincinnati, they're a young team. They want to win. They're hungry. And they are managed by one of the best managers to ever manage this game in the last 25 years in Tito Francona. Barry Grant says, Mendoza needs to shake up the lineup every game. No more set lineups. He has fiddled with the lineup. Lindor was lead off. Then Nimmo was lead off. Then Nimmo went to 4th. Nimmo went to 5th. Soto started the season as the 2-hitter, moved to 3. What more do you want him to do? I would say make Ronnie Mauricio the leadoff hitter. That's what I would do if I was a skip. But I'm not the skipper. I'm just a guy in the stands with a notepad, taking notes, watching the things because it's unbearable. Jeff McNeil is a great contact hitter. I don't know why he's as low in the lineup as he is. Bryson Carver says, love me some Tito. That man managed the Red Sox to a World Series once upon a time. Stanley Babbage says, can a Mets starting pitcher go more than 5 innings? It's a great question. I don't think they can. Senga was the only one that could make it to 6. Peterson too, but Peterson, since the All-Star break, the man pitched in the All-Star game, and he's regressed. Clay Holmes, he's the Clay Holmes we always knew he was, cardiac Clay. The man was a closer and a reliever most of his career. You can't expect him to magically wake up with the ability to go 6 innings as a starter. And everybody else, Minaya, no good. Montas, the human pinata, I never wanted him on this team. The guy, here's the thing about Montas that kills me. And I was told that I was panicking, but Frankie Montas had 6 rehab starts in Syracuse. The man had a 13.50 ERA against AAA ball players. AAA ball players. He couldn't pitch his way out of a co-ed weeknight softball league game, let alone a Major League Baseball game. And that's what upsets me. Barry Grant Jr. says, make Soto lead off, try it. You know, I wouldn't bat him lead off only because when he is productive, he does it with nobody on base. Startling statistic for Juan Soto, and I'm going to actually bring this up. I found this to be interesting the other day. So Juan Soto has 28 home runs this season. Out of his 28 home runs, only 7 have not been solo home runs. So out of 28, 7 of his home runs have been with a man on base. So 21 of his 28 home runs have been solo homers. You're not going to win games when guys ahead of you are not getting on base. You make him the leadoff guy, especially because 7, 8, 9 in this lineup can't get on base. It's going to be the same effect. He's either going to hit a solo homer, he's going to ground out and not jog full speed to first base, or he's going to walk. He's the league leader in walks. Juan Solo. Yeah, we might as well call him that. Baseball purist, how you doing? He says, hey, Al, good to see you, baseball purist. But I want to talk about something for a minute, and I wish I could talk about it in a better headspace. But Pete Alonso has now tied Darryl Strawberry for most home runs as a Met in franchise history all time. Now, granted, I don't really care that he tied the record today because we didn't win the game. The Mets continue to lose. What good is a home run record if you're not winning games? But I will say this. Pete Alonso, who just this series alone, this weekend, has woken up out of his slump, deserves to be paid. And I've been singing his praises all year. Pete Alonso on this season batting .264, 26 home runs, 93 RBI. Pete Alonso, who finished last season with 88 home runs. 88 RBI. Sorry, 88 home runs would be crazy. Finished last season with 88 RBIs. Mind you, was still an all-star, by the way, last season. 93 RBI. Probably will get 100 before this season is over. He's going to be a 30 and 100 guy, more than likely, before the season's over. Pete Alonso this weekend. And again, I wish we could celebrate that he tied the record. He's probably going to surpass it. God forbid an act of God stops him from playing baseball the rest of the year. He's going to surpass that franchise lead. He's got 252 tied with Straw. He'll get it. But Pete Alonso went 2 for 4 today, went 1 for 4 yesterday. That man deserves a cut. And Stearns didn't want to pay him. Now, granted, they offered him a 7-year extension going into the spring last season. He turned it down, took a bet on himself, had a down year, was still an all-star. Pete Alonso doesn't hit that home run in Milwaukee and break Devin Williams' hopes and dreams. There'd be no NLCS run last season. They come back to Pete. They say, all right, Pete, we'll give you a 2-year deal. We'll make you the highest paid first baseman in the league this season on AAV, average annual value. And you can opt out if you want after the year is over. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. got extended by the Blue Jays this season. He won't be going anywhere, especially the Blue Jays are in first place in the AL East. Very shocking. But coming in to this winter, Pete Alonso will be the premier first baseman on the market should he opt out. And rightfully so, he should opt out. You want to compare Pete Alonso's numbers end of year last year to this year. Pete Alonso last season, 34 homers, 88 RBI. So he's 8 homers shy of that mark, but he's already passed the RBI mark. He's 20 walks away from where he finished last season. He's got 50. And he struck out far less. Pete Alonso at the end of last year, 172 strikeouts, only 115 as of right now. Pay the man, Stearns. Pay the man. Don't be cheap. Pete Alonso, the most productive hitter on this team all year. Second in home runs on the club, first in RBI. And when Soto was cold early in the season, Alonso single-handedly was carrying this offense on his back. The fact that he's been cold as of late, I can't even fault him because the man was hot to begin the season. Pete Alonso has earned his money after this season. He's going to be a 30 and 100 guy. You're going to let that type of production walk when your 6 through 9 can't even get on base and your 5 is iffy? Baseball purist says, no aura, no vibes. The Mets need to take their heads out of their buttocks. Yeah. And the schedule for the Mets doesn't get any easier. let's take a look at the Mets' upcoming schedule. So the Mets are off tomorrow. Tomorrow's a travel day. They start on their homestand. They'll be playing the Braves and the Mariners on this homestand as we look at the schedule. So the Mets are off tomorrow. They open a 3-game set with the Braves on Tuesday. Now, the Braves, they're out of contention. They are 4th in the NL East. When's the last time you ever heard the Atlanta Braves not preparing for the postseason in a season? Got to go back more than 25, 30 years before the Chipper Jones days. But the Mets host the Braves for 3. Stanley Babbage says the Mets bullpen is overworked. They're overworked and underproductive. The Mets hosting the Braves. The Braves, now, despite them not having anything to play for, they always play the Mets tough. 3 games on at home against the Braves, and then going up against the Mariners. Now, the Mariners are a very interesting team. It's a very interesting conundrum, this Mariners team, because you look at the standings, and the Mariners, now the Astros are on top of the AL West. The Mariners are chasing them and trying to hold on to a wild card at the same time. The Mariners actually have the first wild card spot in the American League. They are a half a game out in the AL West race. Mariners sitting at 66-53. The Astros 66-52. And the Mariners were a team at the deadline that made some moves. This Mariner team went ahead and got Josh Naylor from the Diamondbacks, and they got Eugenio Suarez from the Diamondbacks to go with the Major League home run leader in Cal Raleigh, the big dumper. They've got Randy Arozarena, Jorge Polanco, and Julio Rodriguez, and when he feels like getting J.P. Crawford. So that team is not going to be a slouch either. Granted, they're not world beaters. They win a lot of their games by 1 run. But nonetheless, dangerous sledding for the Mets here. Very dangerous sledding for this Mets ball club. Look at the starting pitching matchups, which I don't even really want to look at it, but you got to look at it nonetheless. So starting on Tuesday, the Mets, they're going to send out Clay Holmes. He's 9-6 with a 3.46 ERA up against Spencer Strider, who's 5-9 with a 4.04 ERA. Spencer Strider, not the same pitcher he once was pre-injury. Our old friend Carlos Cookie Carrasco taking the hill on Wednesday for the Braves. He's 2-2 with a 6.18 ERA up against David Peterson, 7-5, 2.98 ERA. Series finale Thursday, Kodai Senga, 7-4, 2.30 ERA, 88 strikeouts up against Bryce Elder, 4-9, 6.12 ERA. And then no pitching matchups have been set yet for Friday through Sunday series against the Seattle Mariners. But again, this has been a Metropolitan Report. Mets got to turn it around. I really hope that the Mets catch fire soon because, again, you look at the Cincinnati Reds, a game and a half out of that last wild card spot that the Mets occupy, and the Reds, their schedule in the next 6, the Mets may get some help from the Phillies. The Reds play the Phillies tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then they play the Brewers Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So who knows? This thing could be turned upside down if the Mets could string some wins together and hope that the teams that are supposed to beat the Reds can beat the Reds. But again, folks, my name is Alfred Parsar Jr. This is the Metropolitan Report. Follow down below for everywhere that you can follow the Metropolitan Report. I will be back with a live show sometime this week. I believe, actually, no, we will have a pre-recorded show airing Friday morning, and then we'll have some updates throughout this week and the weekend. But again, I am Alfred Parsar Jr. Thank you for watching this wherever you are, Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube or Twitch, please subscribe. It'll be a great deal. You'll be the first ones to know when that notification bell rings when we go live or a new video is up. And again, I've said all I can say, and the only thing left to say is, let's go Mets, and hopefully we can get a win.